The text hit my phone at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right as I was lining up slides for a big pitch. Clean fonts, clean colors, clean story. 3 short sentences. The kind that don't just ruin your afternoon, they rearrange your whole life. Don't call. Don't come by. We're done. I stared at it so long my eyes went blurry. Then the next line popped up like a judge's gavel. The family agreed. I'm Marin Cole. I'm 32. And I used to believe family meant you could mess up, you could struggle, you could need help, and you'd still belong. Turns out sometimes the people who share your blood are the ones who drain you quietly. Like a slow leak you don't notice until you're on empty. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just typed back the only thing my brain could manage. Got it. 2 words. Polite, small. Like I was replying to a wrong delivery address, not being erased by the people who raised me. For as long as I can remember, I was the responsible one. The one who knew the due dates, the grocery list, the price of heating oil. My younger sister, Sienna, floated through life like the world was supposed to clap for her just for showing up. I worked nights at a diner through college in Pittsburgh, pulled extra shifts during finals, and still drove to my mom's place every Sunday with a bag of groceries and a new box of K-Cups because she liked the good coffee. When my dad disappeared, one afternoon he went to Home Depot and basically never came back. My mom called me her rock, and I wore that like a medal. Because older folks know this truth. Once your family labels you the strong one, they start treating you like you don't get to be tired. The morning of that text, I'd sent my usual transfer, $1,800. Rent in my 1-bedroom was $250. My car insurance was climbing again, and I was stretching everything. Store-brand cereal, coupons, postponing new shoes, because Mom called crying about the electric company. I didn't question it. Good daughters don't interrogate tears. That Tuesday started normal. I'd woken up in my small apartment above a bakery, the place always smelling like sugar and yeast. I measured my oatmeal like my doctor told me. Half a cup, not a bowl. Took my blood pressure pill and checked my phone while the kettle whistled. First thing I saw? Sienna's Instagram story. She was on a boat somewhere sunny, toes on white cushions, holding a drink with a tiny umbrella like it was a personality trait. My phone buzzed again during lunch. Mom, no request, no guilt trip. Just the message that said I was toxic without using the word. And that phrase, the family agreed, stuck like a fishbone. I kept thinking, what family meeting? Who was there? When did they vote me off the island? I sat in a bathroom stall at work for nearly 20 minutes reading it over and over. Then I washed my hands, fixed my mascara like nothing happened, and walked back to my desk. My coworker Diane slid a paper cup of tea toward me without asking. You look pale, she said, gentle. Strangers can be kinder in 10 seconds than relatives are in 30 years. That evening, I drove past my mom's house anyway. I know the text said not to, but I needed to see if it was real. The porch light was on. The living room glowed warm. And in the driveway were 3 cars I recognized. My aunt's SUV, my uncle's pickup, and my sister's shiny new Audi, parked like she owned the place. Inside, shadows moved against the curtains. Laughter, people, a family dinner, without me. And right then, my phone lit up with a notification. Sienna posted a photo. Everyone around a table, holding wine glasses, smiling like I'd never existed. Caption, cutting out negative energy feels amazing. Protect your peace. My stomach dropped. Not because she said it, but because I suddenly wondered something I'd never let myself wonder before. What if this wasn't a sudden decision? What if they've been practicing life without me for a while? The next morning didn't feel dramatic. That's what surprised me most. No music swelling, no sudden clarity. Just quiet. The kind you notice when something heavy has finally been removed, even if it tore skin on the way out. I went to work like normal. Drove the same route, passed the Shell station where gas had jumped to $4.19 a gallon, muttered about it like everyone else my age does. Bought my usual turkey sandwich on wheat. Life didn't stop just because my family decided I didn't belong anymore. But something small happened that shifted everything. During a coffee break, I opened Facebook, a habit I've tried to quit a dozen times, and saw a post from my aunt dated 3 weeks earlier. Another perfect monthly family dinner. So grateful for time together. Monthly. That word landed harder than the text message. I scrolled, slowly, carefully, and there they were. Photos going back months. Same dining room, same tablecloth, same people, birthdays, Sunday dinners, even a cookout at the lake house last summer. All captioned with words like, together, complete, family first. I wasn't tagged in a single one. My chest tightened, not from shock, but from recognition. Like when you finally see the shape in one of those old magic eye pictures and can't unsee it. I hadn't been pushed out suddenly. I'd been phased out. That's when the math started running in my head without permission. The emergency phone calls, the frantic voicemails. The weeks Mom said she was too tired for company. Every one of those dates lined up neatly with a dinner I wasn't invited to. I'd been paying bills while they passed the potatoes, funding groceries I never ate, electricity for lights that were clearly on, wine glasses I never touched. It wasn't just exclusion, it was strategy. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a question I'd always avoided because it felt disloyal. If this is family, what exactly have I been loyal to? That afternoon, instead of sending my usual just checking in text to Mom, I did something new. I said nothing. And that silence, that tiny act of restraint, became the first crack in a story they assumed I'd never question. Silence does something interesting when you're used to being the one who fixes everything. At first, it feels wrong, like forgetting your wallet at home. You keep reaching for your phone, checking it, wondering if you're being irresponsible. But after a few days, the quiet turns sharp. It cuts through denial. By Friday, Mom still hadn't called. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Not even to ask for money. That alone told me more than any argument ever could. I took the day off work the following Monday. I told my boss I wasn't feeling well, which was true, just not in the way people expect. I spent the morning at my kitchen table with a legal pad, a calculator, and 12 months of bank statements pulled up on my laptop. I'm not an accountant, but I can add. Every crisis had a timestamp. The broken furnace in January, the water heater in March, the unexpected property tax issue in June. When I lined them up next to the dates of those smiling family photos, the pattern snapped into place. Over the last year, I'd sent just over $21,000. Not loans, gifts. Because family doesn't keep score. Except someone had been keeping score. They just weren't counting my sacrifice. They were counting how much they could extract before cutting me loose. I felt something then that surprised me. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness. It was embarrassment, not because I'd helped, but because I'd helped without ever being told the truth. That afternoon, curiosity pushed me somewhere I probably wouldn't admit to anyone out loud. Months earlier, when I'd helped Mom set up online banking on my laptop, because these passwords confused me, she'd stayed logged into her email and Facebook. I'd never touched them. Until that day. I told myself I was just looking for context. What I found was a blueprint. Message threads between Mom and Sienna stretched back almost a year. They weren't angry. They weren't emotional. They were practical. She's getting more negative. Mom wrote in one. She questions too much, Sienna replied. We'll slowly create distance, Mom answered. She won't even notice at first. That sentence landed like a slap. They discussed me the way people talk about canceling a cable subscription. Gradual, quiet, no confrontation. Then I saw the line that made my hands go cold. She's not really one of us anyway. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall. 32 years collapsed into one ugly thought. They never saw me as family. They saw me as infrastructure. But the real turn, the moment this stopped being emotional and became something else, came when I saw a message about my grandmother, Evelyn. My grandma had been in a nursing facility outside Cleveland for over a year. Alzheimer's had taken most of her short-term memory, but she still knew me. Always me. I visited every Sunday, brought her lemon drops, read the same mystery novel aloud because she liked the sound of it even when she didn't follow the plot. Mom visited when she needed photos. In the messages, Mom wrote, "Don't worry about the will. We'll handle it." Sienna replied with a heart emoji. Another message followed a few weeks later. The administrator is asking questions about the signatures. We need to be careful. Signatures. My stomach dropped. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I drove straight to Peterson and Hale, the law firm my grandmother had used for decades. The receptionist barely finished asking my name before an older man stood up from a back office. "Thank God," he said quietly. "We've been trying to reach you." That's how I learned the truth. 3 years earlier, before the Alzheimer's progressed, my grandmother had signed a will. A clear one. Detailed. It left her house, her savings, and her jewelry collection to me. Not out of spite. Out of choice. There was a handwritten note attached. For Marin, she shows up. But 6 months ago, a new will appeared. Signed when my grandmother could no longer write her own name. This one left everything to Mom and Sienna. Nothing to me. Legally, that alone raised alarms. Emotionally, it felt like someone punched through my ribs. The funeral happened 2 weeks later. I wasn't invited. I watched from my car as people hugged in the parking lot, crying on cue. Sienna wore my grandmother's pearls, the ones Grandma always said were too special for every day. Mom leaned into condolences like a professional mourner. I didn't cry. Instead, I met Janice, a nurse from the facility. She asked me to grab coffee. She showed me a video. Security footage. Time-stamped. The day the second will was supposedly signed. My grandmother lay asleep, completely unresponsive. Sienna's boyfriend, Evan, held her hand and moved it across a piece of paper while Mom steadied the clipboard. They were using her like a tool. Janice said she'd reported it. The administrator shut it down. Said she was misinterpreting things. Turns out, the administrator had been paid to misinterpret. By the time the official will reading arrived, I wasn't scared anymore. I was prepared. I walked into that conference room with a handwriting analyst, Janice, and a detective from the Elder Fraud Unit. Mom smiled at me like I was confused. Sienna smirked like she'd already won. They didn't know what I knew. The analyst spoke first. Then Janice played the footage. Then the detective stood up. The room exploded. Mom tried to explain. Sienna cried. Evan ran. None of it worked. Fraud doesn't care about family titles. They were arrested before lunch. But the biggest twist didn't come from the police. It came from a phone call. My aunt, Mom's estranged sister, called in during the chaos. She did this before, she said calmly. To our own mother. The silence in the room was absolute. Patterns matter in court. And that's when I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. This wasn't about me. It never had been. This was who they were. And they just finally picked the wrong person to underestimate. 6 months later, my life looks quieter, and that's how I know it's healthier. I live in my grandmother's house now. Same creaky stairs, same kitchen clock that runs a minute fast. I keep finding her handwritten notes tucked into drawers and old cookbooks. One just says, "You were never invisible." I keep that one in my wallet. The court process moved faster than I expected. Fraud leaves a paper trail. So does greed. Mom was sentenced to 5 years. Sienna took a plea deal and got less time, but more consequences. Her online healing journey vanished once the truth became public. Turns out integrity matters when people finally look closely. I don't feel victorious. I feel clear. Clear about what family really means. Clear about how long I confused obligation with love. Clear about the damage we excuse just because it comes from people who share our last name. Last month, Mom wrote me a letter from prison. 8 pages. Blame. Revisionist history. Forgiveness I never asked for. I didn't reply. Because the biggest twist in this story isn't the arrest or the inheritance. It's this. I didn't lose my family that Tuesday afternoon. I lost an illusion. And in exchange, I gained something far more valuable. Peace, self-respect, and the freedom to stop proving my worth to people who never intended to see it. Blood didn't make me family. Showing up did. And now finally I show up for myself.